Today's lesson essential question is, how do I use character responses to events and challenges to determine the central message of a story? So today we're going to be looking for that central message. Central message means the lesson learned from the story or the moral of the story. So those three words are going to be used to explain the same thing: the lesson, the central message, or the moral. They all mean the same thing. We're going to be identifying that central message by looking at how the characters are responding. So we'll look again at the thoughts, the words, the feelings, and the actions of the characters, because that's how they respond to the events. So remember, characters respond to events and challenges throughout a story, and they often learn a lesson. We call this lesson a moral or central message. Yesterday we talked about how we retell a story by looking at the beginning, the middle, and the end. We talked about how we look for the characters' thoughts, words, feelings, and actions throughout the story. Yesterday, when we read Pecos Bill, we talked about how it is important that we first, at the beginning of the story, identify that problem. And then in the middle, we look at how the characters are responding to the problem. And then at the end, we look at how the problem is solved. Well, now the last step is to look at all of those key details and look at those character responses. How did they respond? How did they end up solving the problem? And now we're going to identify what lesson or moral or central message was learned throughout all of that. So knowing which events are the most important in a story will help you figure out the story's lesson or central message. So again, knowing the important events, those key details are going to help us with the central message. The central message of a story is the big idea or lesson the story teaches. Important events in a story help you figure out the central message. So again, I see these words, important events. Those are the key details. Those are the characters' responses. Take a look at these pictures. Let's look at the first one. I see there's a character here. And it looks like the character has a problem. What is the character's problem? It looks like the character's kind of sad. The character's looking at the other kids playing and kind of looks like he wants to play too. So now let's look at the next picture. In this first picture, I can see this little girl looking at him. So she reacts by doing something. How does she react? She reacts or responds by going over to the little boy and saying, "Come play with us." Okay, and then in the end, the problem is solved. Why is the problem solved? Yeah, the little boy isn't sad anymore. He's playing. Did these characters learn a lesson? You might say that the characters learned that they should include everybody, to be nice to people. So you've already reread Pecos Bill with somebody at home, and you should have already retold the story just like we did yesterday to that person that you read it to. Let's take a look at our graphic organizer from yesterday and what we included in it yesterday when we were retelling the story, and then we'll talk about the lesson learned. So yesterday at the beginning of the story, we met Pecos Bill and his horse, who is his best friend. We know that Pecos Bill was riding Flash and a giant mountain lion jumped out in front of them. Then Pecos Bill reacted. He sent Flash home, so he was safe. I thought it was interesting that Pecos Bill was able to think so quickly to send Flash home to keep him safe. That was pretty good thinking on his part. So after that, Pecos Bill responds by grabbing a rattlesnake and making it into a lasso, which was so clever that he thought, like, I could use that snake to help me. So then he threw the lasso over the mountain lion and pulled the lion in. So that was pretty cool. So in the end, the mountain lion ended up giving up, remember? And Pecos Bill jumped on his back and rode away. Well, as I'm looking at these events, I'm noticing that Bill is really good at thinking on his feet. He was really prepared for anything that was coming. He knew what it was like out there in the West, and he was ready to solve any problem that was thrown at him. So I'm starting to think about what lesson could be learned from Bill. And I'm thinking it's important to always be prepared for whatever life throws at you. So the central message or the lesson or the moral is to always be prepared for what life throws at you. Today you're going to be using this graphic organizer to help you do some writing. You're going to be retelling the story, just the end of it, and then you're going to be including the central message in that writing. So I've given you some sentence frames that will help you in your writing assignment. And again, you're telling the end of the story in your writing today. Make sure you're including that text evidence to help you support your response.